Everyone's first Souls game is a magical experience. The fear, the desperation, the triumph, and the pure euphoria of overcoming the impossible. That is the essence of your first Souls playthrough. But after the first run, we get good, we learn the mechanics, and the challenge now doesn't seem so impossible like it first did. And we all wish we could go back and feel that triumph over the impossible once more. But unfortunately, that's impossible. Life is no fairy tale. We cannot change the past. What's happened is set in stone, and the journey of our first Souls game is over. But what if I said we could experience it all over again? Maybe even more potently than the first time. Welcome to the Soul Level 1 run. Those original feelings buried deep within the heart of your memories will surface once more. Feelings of real potent fear and triumph against the impossible are now a present reality. It doesn't matter that I've mechanically improved because now so too did the enemies. Anything can happen, and I want to take you all on that journey with me. At the start, it might not feel too different from a normal leveled run, but as we delve deeper into the depths and even below into Blighttown, you will start to see a man become a child once again. A scared child, despairing and praying that he'll be able to find some way through this cruel world. And the question we all have, will I be able to defeat Smough Ornstein? Or the harder question, do I have it in me to ever be capable of felling Manus, touted by some to be the hardest boss in the series? And will I die to Pinwheel? Let's find out in the Dark Souls 1 Level 1 run. Also, there's a boss tier list. Alright, it's now time to create the greatest pyromancer of all time that will never use pyromancy, and Mr. King is ready to rock and roll. And we arrive at the first boss. Feeble sees his foe, he locks eyes, and he knows that running is not an option. Well, there goes hitless and deathless the first boss. I can't believe this. Well, can't live in the past. Time to grab my axe that I'll use to kill every single boss, and the fireballs, we don't need those. This is Dark Souls, not Dragon Ball. And just as quickly as our epic undead journey begins, so too does the tier list. The way the level design leads you around the Asylum Demon is really cool, and it's hard to separate the level design from the boss ranking itself. The entire Dark Souls game loop is encapsulated in this one boss. You see a boss that you can beat with skill, unless you're me, but it's too hard and time consuming, so you either die or run away. While running away, you find weapons and abilities to increase your power through stats. Then you get good by learning the mechanics of combat against normal enemies. After all of this, you come back to the great foe who once seemed an impossible challenge, only to now realize that you can win. This is Dark Souls. This is everything the game represents. Brilliant. Probably the best tutorial in any of the Souls games ever, maybe in any game ever. If you've already beaten Dark Souls before, the Asylum Demon is mechanically nothing special, but when you first see him and his massive size for the first time when you don't have a weapon, he seems impossible. With the amazing level design as well as teaching the player the ideology behind the game, this is an A tier fight. I can't give a non-mechanical fight S tier, but for just how much it teaches the player, this is really amazing. Keeping up with the theme of giant demon bosses, the second boss, Tarus Demon, adds a twist to the mechanics introduced with the Asylum Demon. One way to beat this boss is through using the plunging attack, but if you choose to fight him without this tactic, then we'll find a great fight about positioning. The first of many Dark Souls 1 fights about positioning, actually, since dodge rolling through these attacks simply doesn't work a lot of the time in this game. Once you understand to not be a Dark Souls 3 alpha male that spams dodge roll, you have to bait out certain attacks, back up, get a hit in, and then back up again. Over time, you will be pushed to a wall, so instead of attacking, just walk around the boss during the attack window. Overall, this is mechanically a pretty easy boss. However, the cramped area and threat of falling off the bridge makes this fight tense for Souls vets and newcomers alike. A really great fight, although not as iconic as the Asylum Demon, so we're going to give Mr. Tarus a B tier. As I fought the gauntlet of enemies in Undeadburg on the way to Tarus Demon, I started to want to die. Not in a suicidal way, mind you, but just because I enjoy fighting the enemies that much that I want to be forced to refight them a few more times. The slower enemy windups have a charm that was lost in other Souls games for me. Clearing levels in Dark Souls 1 feels really good, as it is still one of those older Souls games where every action felt like it mattered. Low stamina and high roll costs help to add to this feeling that you are always one very avoidable mistake from death. Future Souls games would make the enemies harder and faster while providing the player with a more viable spam roll option. Still though, I find going back to the old style of play is rewarding in a special way that only people who played the older Souls games would really understand. Even though the slower enemies and strong shields should make clearing enemies in Dark Souls 1 easier than Dark Souls 3, this is simply not true in my experience. Dark Souls 1 gets so much mileage out of a pretty simple combat system by placing enemies in cramped and enclosed spaces. The OP shields are balanced out by rolling being pretty much worse than the other games, and fighting in tight corridors almost begging for that block and parry style combat, which feels really good here. I love the amount of enemies in each area. Not too many to be impossible, but just enough to cause real tension in the player. If I fought Dark Souls 1 enemies in a more open city like Ithriel from Dark Souls 3, then it would be really easy. But in these cramped hallways where you are always being cornered and enclosed by enemies, the difficulty at times feels harder than future Souls titles, and in a good way. Don't make a single mistake or the horde of enemies will stagger chain you to death, yet you are always just so close to turning the tide on the enemy. Find the perfect opening and you will be victorious. Speaking of finding openings against multiple enemies, the first truly hard boss of this game is coming up, the Gargoyle Demons. Another brilliant fight. For a new player, this will seem like an insurmountable challenge. 2 enemies at once? That's cheating. One giant monster is hard enough, why do we have to fight 2 demons at the same time? Of course, it isn't too difficult when you realize how they are coded for one to play aggro and the other one to shoot fire from behind him, so you don't get ganged up on too much. The main strat for victory is to trigger the in-front gargoyle to attack, avoid the damage, and then get behind the other one breathing fire for a good creative opening. A 1v2 fight that is tailor-made for the player to be able to find his own opening is really amazing. You dictate the flow of this fight by creating your own openings, and that really makes it a great fight. There's always the risk of getting cornered and having 2 people breathe fire on you, but that's your fault for losing too much ground to the gargoyles. Truly, this is an amazing fight. I'm going to give it the top of A tier. In Dark Souls 1, the regular enemies play by the same rules as the player, up until a little over halfway through the game, but we'll get to that later. Many people criticize Dark Souls for being too difficult to get into, but what these people don't understand is that the beginning of Dark Souls 1 is a perfect tutorial for any new player, arguably the best Souls-like game to start with because of this. Now let me show you some examples. If I attack a shield enemy, I am left staggered and will probably get hit and take damage. After learning this, I can now play patient, bait out an attack so that after I block the enemy's hit, he is left staggered and I can punish his mistake. This is a pretty simple teaching lesson. The knight enemies can parry me, well, I can parry them too. The bandits can backstab me, well, that's good to know, I can backstab enemies too. The soldier kicks my shield to break my stamina, well, I guess I can kick through his shield too. I could go on, as so many of the tools enemies use to murder you can be used right back at them. The mechanics taught through the enemies is really well done in this game, arguably better than any other Dark Souls game because of how every new mechanic you learn is taught to you one deliberate step at a time, or at least one death at a time. Alright, that's enough praising Dark Souls 1. The next boss is Capra Demon. Now, I don't want to repeat too much of what other people have already said, so I'm going to keep this short. I don't like dogs, and I don't like dogs in cramped spaces. I also don't like the Capra Demon. You either lose or win in the first 5 seconds, and then you have to run past 50 billion backstabbing bandits and dogs to get back to the fight, just so that you can win or lose in 5 seconds again. F tier. We are T-minus 1.5 hours into the level 1 run, and I'm lost in the depths. I don't know if anyone will hear this, but I dropped down the hole and I'm surrounded by frogs. I don't know if I can escape. I don't know if I have it in me anymore. The level 1 run may be over. Oh shit, I just had to go down the ladder into the right. We're at the Gaping Dragon. Looks a lot cooler than his mechanics are. He deals damage by just moving his feet, which I never liked since it doesn't look like it makes any sense when you actually get hit. The boss may be intimidating, but FromSoft never found a way to make his gaping face a thing that actually becomes a difficult to avoid attack, meaning that his scary appearance has almost no impact on the mechanics of the fight. I really don't like health pool bosses, and he might have actually killed me once here, so maybe F tier. Actually, no. I'm gonna raise it to D tier. I don't like this boss, but he's not Capra Demon level. Okay, I'm sorry. After doing a really legit ranking of the easiest boss in Dark Souls 1, Gaping Dragon, it's time to talk about something that is very important to all Dark Souls games: difficulty. Talking about the difficulty of Dark Souls 1 is weird, because in many ways it is not a hard Souls game when compared to future titles, but in other ways it is the hardest Souls game ever. Funny, I can actually say that about almost all of them and mean something completely different. What I mean here is that in Dark Souls 1 it is usually easy to kill any single enemy or many of the bosses because shields are really damn good. You can absorb damage with the shield, lower it instantly, regain almost all lost stamina, and then raise the shield to block the next hit. Another way Dark Souls 1 is easy is through abusing backstabs. Enemies turn very slowly, so it's very easy to circle them to get free damage and iframes. Future titles like Elden Ring would get around this by making the turn radius so fast that late game knights and backstabbing feels more like luck than skill, which might be the right design choice to increase difficulty. Dark Souls 1 combats how easy it can be with backstabs through using tight hallways and cramped level design, but whenever the player does manage to lead an enemy out of the hallway and into the open area, it can be really easy to get repeated backstabs. Of course, I would also say that Dark Souls 1 is the hardest Souls game, but that was misleading since Dark Souls 1 isn't just hard, it's brutal. The level design is tailor-made to murder you. Curse lowers your HP to half, almost begging you to uninstall. Toxin exists, and there are no bonfires, like anywhere. Well, actually, there are bonfires, plenty of them, but this brings me to my next point. Almost all of Dark Souls 1 difficulty is neglected if you just look up how to make the game easier. You want to have a checkpoint in Blighttown? Just do this jump and you got it. You want to have a bonfire in Sens Fortress? There's one right here. Bet a cast a little bit too terrible for you? There's a hidden bonfire there too. Toxin keeps killing you, prevent it by buying this item. The brutal nature of Dark Souls 1 is really interesting because it makes you feel like you're in a world that does not want you. You should not exist and you have no value. None. Okay, I'm sorry, I went a little too hard there. We all value. But the point remains that Dark Souls 1 makes you feel like you are a valueless outsider in a hostile world, which in turn makes you feel so great when you finally overcome Blighttown or Quelagg or Smough Ornstein. The brutal type of difficulty makes you feel more like any other Souls game that this world is evil. However, the trade-off for this Souls game being the most brutally difficult is it kind of is the most inaccessible game in the series if you don't have any guidance or access to the internet. FromSoft went back in this approach for future titles. Of course, even with every hidden bonfire unlocked in Dark Souls 1, the amount of checkpoints pale in comparison to Dark Souls 3, which is obviously a Dark Souls 3 overcorrection as a result of how brutal the first game was. The feeling of being lost and without safety was lost in future titles, but oh is it ever present here. We are T-minus 2 hours into the level 1 run. This land does not want me. The world does not want me. Dark Souls does not want me. My +5 hand axe isn't doing any damage, and I've completely forgotten how I'm supposed to get through Blighttown because I have the memory of a gerbil. I don't even know if I can make it out of here. This might be the end. I'm lost, afraid, and I just want to go home. I feel more afraid now at level 1 than I ever have before. But wait! At the end of the road, I expect to find safety only to be greeted by a dark, damp, poison swamp and a horde of enemies that chase me from their land. Their land, not my land. And I understand that now. Okay, after running past 100 enemies easily without any fear, any deaths, we approach the next boss, Quelagg, the sexiest of all insects. This boss is really interesting for me because she was my first wall in my first Dark Souls playthrough. I accidentally skipped Capra Demon and the Depths and Blighttown because of the shortcut since I took the Master Key and had no idea what the intended path to Blighttown was. I was extremely underleveled and stuck at the bottom of the swamp, so it took almost 4 hours for me to beat her the first time. I thought Quelagg was an impossible challenge, yet after hours of grinding, I got good enough to finally fell the witch. Fast forward to today, and I first time Quelagg at level 1 with the +5 hand axe. I really do love this boss. Just like the bosses before this is another lesson in positioning. The only real reason I had so much trouble when I first fought her before, other than being bad at dodge rolling, and because her fire hits through my shield, but it was also because she's meant to be fought with an unlocked camera so you can easily run to her side and avoid a lot of her attacks. In Dark Souls 1, you can't run while locked on unless you're going forward, just for some reason to make the game harder, I guess. If you play locked off, Quelagg is really a great fight. Route around the fire, keep your back away from the wall so you can always run away from the explosion, and play close to dodge your sword swings. A really cool boss, A tier. Now our feeble hero who has killed Spider-Woman leaves feeling victorious to... oh no, he's stuck. Well, there's only two options from here. Down to hell or up to the heavens. I love the fact that there is no teleport in Dark Souls 1. You have to commit to every journey that you set on. You have to plan your trips ahead of time using shortcuts to save time to visit the blacksmith or get to the depths or get back to Firelink. Wherever you need to go in the early game or even some parts of the late game, there are multiple ways to get there. When I first got lost in Blighttown, I felt desperation that no other game has ever made me feel. I was hard stuck. I either kill Quelagg or I die at the bottom of the swamp. Epic. Once my weak, feeble level 1 warrior emerged from the darkness of Blighttown and I was free, I felt a sense of relief that I've never felt before. Except that I have felt this before. I felt this way in my first Dark Souls 1 playthrough, and being level 1 increases the danger of the world so much that it made me dread Blighttown as much if not more than the first time I came here. And this feeling, level 1 or not, is truly an experience that only Dark Souls 1 can capture because of its brutal, fast travel-less world. If I could warp out of Blighttown, then I wouldn't feel this sense of relief at any level when I escape back to safety. Getting cursed may be terrible, but it's a terribly good story. A curse forces you to traverse back through the map to find your way to the gargoyle level, and it increases your fear whenever you happen to pass upon a frog. Backtracking may be boring on paper and in the moment, but backtracking to remove your cursed existence is cool because of the story it creates. Sure, it might be super annoying in the moment and make some players uninstall, but a part of me loves the fact that curses are in the game. Shit, I think Dark Souls 1 is starting to give me Stockholm Syndrome. My only issue with curses is that the game is too much of a curse fetish. You fall down a hole in the depths, 100 frogs, and it takes 2 seconds to get cursed. Like, damn, at least give me a fighting chance. I don't mind curses being in the game, but some areas are tailor-made to make you get cursed, especially if you're a new player. I'm happy curses exist, but I wasn't at all disappointed when future titles got rid of them. After traversing back to Firelink, our hero has to complete another great challenge, Sens Fortress. Such a great level. This is the definition of hard but fair, unless you don't know that mimics exist, but still a great level. The player can see every trap before they land on it. The game combines traps with ranged enemies in tight spaces and swinging saws. Sens Fortress is beautifully tense, with obstacles that feel like the most unfair BS until you figure it out and adapt. This level is really a combination of the tight corridors of Undead Parish combined with the threat of fall damage in Blighttown in one amazing level. Absolutely amazing. The only thing I dislike about this level is that after the long stretch of level, we are greeted with no bonfire. There is a shortcut right before the boss if you get a key. However, I really think FromSoft shouldn't have hid this bonfire. Sens Fortress is really difficult and a new player might miss both checkpoints pretty easily. The level is hard enough without the added bullcrap. Do you see what I mean? Dark Souls 1 isn't that hard of a game if you know a couple of extra hints and bonfire locations. It's almost like the game was designed around having a guide. I know saying that is heresy in the Dark Souls community, but I really do think that for many people, having a light amount of guidance from a Souls vet might make the game a lot of times better for them. I know the first time through the game I used the internet and asked friends some questions to make the game a bit easier. I guess if summoning in Dark Souls 3 makes the bosses easier, then using guidance in Dark Souls 1 is the main source of making Dark Souls 1 easier. Because there's probably a lot of people who never found the key and they never found the bonfire and they just figured out they either gave up or they just beat Iron Golem without a checkpoint. I never did that, but I would feel sorry for anyone who did because that doesn't seem like a good time to me. Similar to how we climbed the church in Undead Parish to fight the gargoyles on the roof, we now climb a torture trap of a level to fight an iron giant at the very tippy top of the tower. Dark Souls 1 is consistently using verticality better than any other Souls game. No, better than any other game I've ever played. When it comes to ranking the Iron Golem as a boss, I'm extremely conflicted. On one hand, I had more fun coming up with strats to beat this guy than any other level 1 boss so far, other than maybe Quelagg, but it's also worth noting that for the gargoyles, Quelagg, and Iron Golem, I used a locked-off camera. A lot of the challenge from Dark Souls 1 is using a locked-on camera that doesn't allow you to run sideways or backwards, so for many bosses, using the locked-off camera is really the way to go. The camera-locked jank is an artificial form of difficulty for many players that I personally dislike, but it doesn't affect me too much since I've gotten pretty good at locked-off combat. The strat for Iron Golem is to run under his legs during attacks unless he closes his legs, and then in which case you need to dodge roll. The developers realized that running under his legs strat was too strong, so the boss had a cool way to react to it. The other strat that I use is to bait an attack, walk back from it, punish, repeat. This is safer and kind of fun with positioning. Sometimes you need a dodge roll and other times you don't. This results in level 1 Golem being the first real sword combat dance that the series evolved into, even though it's not quite there yet in my opinion. Dark Souls 1 doesn't have too many of these dance-type sword fights, but this is sort of a cross between a good sword fight dance and a traditional colossal Dark Souls 1 boss. Another thing that I really love about this fight is how his hitboxes are really good, allowing for satisfying dodge rolls that almost always work, as opposed to the more jank dodge rolls of previous bosses, which hit me when they felt like they shouldn't. Yeah, there's no bad bosses in Iron Golem, not at all. Iron Golem is actually perfect. Okay, actually his grab is awful, and can be a one-shot if you're near the edge or just unlucky. I dislike that they made the grab hitbox so obviously unfair. The way I found best to deal with the jank was to treat his grab like a mini Quelagg explosion. Yes, his grab is so big that you need to think of it as an explosion. That's ridiculous. Once I fought the Iron Golem with this mindset, I actually really liked the fight. My only issue with the fight is that the grab should have been a mini explosion to better communicate to the player what needs to happen to not get grabbed, and he just has too much health is the big issue too. So much health that the fight drags beyond what felt like fun for me. Mechanically, this might be one of the better bosses so far, but he has some issues. I wanted to give him A tier at first because I did enjoy the fight, but the grab hitbox and having too much HP, it's going to lower him to B tier. So we've defeated the Snatch and Grab menace, and now it's time to ascend to the Land of Gods for the epic confrontation with Pikachu and Snorlax, but we are still weak, because we are level 1. However, there are other ways to gain strength. It's time to hit up our best friend, Blacksmith Vamos. But first, we must descend into the depths of the world in the Catacombs. Let's see how our feeble hero does. It has been T-minus 4.5 hours into the run, and we are still stuck in the dark, dirty, damp, dark, bony depths of the Catacombs. But wait, is that a light? It is! It is! Vamos! My brother, we are reunited! Wait, Vamos! Vamos, help me! There's skeletons everywhere! They won't stop! No, Vamos! Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm a Dark Souls pro, which means I know a cheese strat or two. Just jump down here, here, and here, and we're back. Oh, shit, I'm dead. No biggie. One more try. Oh, shit, I died. We reached Vamos. Easy. Oh, shit, they followed me. I hate Berserk. I'm sorry, I love Berserk more than my very own life, but these Berserk wheel references can suck 22 dicks at the same time. Gotta keep my cool. It's no problem. They followed me again? That's it, I'm gonna fight. Wait, Vamos, I didn't mean it, no! Earlier into this critique, I said getting cursed was good because it creates a story. I take it back. Fuck this game. Okay, I'm sorry, I actually love this game. It is a good story. I died 20 times trying to upgrade my weapon only to hit the one person I need, so I need to leave the Catacombs, get to the Gargoyles, absolve my sin to a creepy man, and we're back in the Catacombs. Great, I love it. Or actually, I do just have Stockholm Syndrome. I can't tell anymore. Alright, just one more try, and yes! We've got it. I have the Fire Axe that will easily destroy Pikachu and Snorlax to the Land of the Gods. After just one more Wheel Skeleton death, finally, I can leave this hell. And then it hit me. Euphoria, safety, love. After a nightmare in the Catacombs, I return home, and I feel relief that I've never known. Only by going through hell can you truly appreciate love. That's it. And life is captured in Dark Souls 1 in such a poetic way. The highest level of art that art can reach. Welcome to Anor Londo, the Land of the Gods. Home to such attractions as the bullshit rafters, knights in tight spaces, knights shooting arrows in a tight space, and parrying knights in tight spaces. It's almost like they thought backstabbing was so easy, so hey, let's just put every single super strong enemy in a tight corridor. I still like it though. Pairing silver knights always feels great. At the heart of this castle lie the two most loyal knights of them all, Smough and Ornstein, who I've referred to as Pokemon up until now. Please don't copyright strike me, Nintendo. In Pokemon, you always fight one at a time or 2-on-2, but FromSoft does what Nintendo don't. This is the moment where FromSoft adds on to the idea first introduced in the Gargoyle fight, but what if there were two? Feeble has traveled for so long, so many hours of rejection and terror from the cold dark world. Can he fell two Pokemon at once? Or would it be Feeble that ends the fight by fainting and reviving back at the Pokestop? Let's find out. Actually, let's talk about something. Sorry, I led you guys on just for a filler episode right before the climactic fight, but we have to talk about something very prevalent in Dark Souls 1, Jank. Sometimes hitboxes linger for almost no reason. Sometimes dodge rolls get punished for what feels like no reason. Many weapons have colliders that the player gets stuck onto instead of rolling through so you take damage, and if you try to block sometimes you will just get hit for no reason. I'm also playing on the Prepare to Die edition where there is only 4-way rolling, so have fun doing every fight locked off. The jump has no iframes, so I have to time the end of my run with walking for a moment to have access to the dodge roll, which is really a frustrating form of artificial difficulty. I haven't complained until now about the jank in full because the bosses have been pretty simple with limited movesets, so I could easily combat the jank with some good positioning. Well, that ends now. Smough Ornstein are both great and terrible. They are a great idea, but have just awful jank. If a game designer handed me a boss idea that listed the mechanics, I would say, hey, that's an amazing idea. However, execution is equally valid to an amazing design, and that's where Smough Ornstein fall flat. The idea behind the fight is that Smough is super hard to avoid charge attacks that you can stop using the pillars in the arena. Smough is usually running his fat ass at you, but then Ornstein plays back and waits to use a gap closer on you that will reach you from anywhere. So the player needs to distance himself from Smough, wait for Ornstein gap close, and then attack Ornstein in a position where Smough will charge into the pillar as they fight rather than into the player. On paper, this is an S tier fight, but I hate it. Ornstein's gap closer is completely bugged and will start and stop at random, all the while charging you at lightning speed. Pikachu pun intended. So the idea of Ornstein's gap closer is ruined by a broken animator and collision code that makes a great idea terrible. Ornstein can't cancel his dash whenever he starts it, but will sometimes return to idle or walking animation only to snap back into a flying spear of death. This is peak Dark Souls 1 jank, great, and I really hate it. And after playing patient to find a careful opening, Ornstein will spam dodge faster than Dark Souls 3 character in PvP. I really dislike this, as in a 1v2 it's already hard enough to find an opening that we didn't need Ornstein to dash around so much just to punish a player who found a cool opening. Also, sometimes Ornstein will just hit me through my shield. Cool, great, I love it. And I can't lock on and make the blocking easier because 4-way rolling is too limited against the 1v2 almost all of the time. Great, I love jank. When you finally kill the dodge spamming bastard, the second phase of Smough is kind of a lot of fun. Outside of one terrible lingering hitbox with his new Pika ass slap powers, I really like the fight. He feels like a lot better version of Iron Golem, only where instead of Golem's mini explosion being a grab for some reason, Smough ass slap is an actual explosion that illustrates very clearly what the player needs to do. Go for 1 or 2 hits, never more. Play non-committal and patient, and if you get his charge attack stuck on a pillar like a pro, then you shall be victorious. When Ornstein isn't spam rolling or transforming into a flying spear of death that is actually being thrown around the map at random, Smough and Ornstein is an A or S tier fight, but in a glitched out level 1 run, they're more like B tier. Smough and Ornstein are an amazing fight that is flawed by being glitched and unfinished, almost like an analogy for the whole of Dark Souls 1, an amazing experience brought down by being bugged and unfinished. But when it all lines up for just a moment and you see the beauty that is Dark Souls 1, then for just that one moment you realize you're playing the best game of all time, and that's the real treasure of Dark Souls 1. Until the treasure you find is a fucking mimic and then it's back to the Dark Souls hate train. The moment was great while it lasted. At this point in the game, you will feel on top of the world. You, the player, no, you, the conqueror of kingdoms, have taken his conquest to even the lands of the gods themselves. Nothing can stop you now, nothing. Not even a string of bad or unfinished bosses and levels. Wait, what? Dark Souls 2 is all about duels with knights in armor. Bloodborne is about hunting fearsome beasts. Dark Souls 3 is a bit of the last 2 boss types combined. If this is the general trend in boss fights of these games, then Dark Souls 1 has been about felling giant monsters that are impossibly huge, towering over all creatures and intimidating even the mightiest of warriors. That is what Dark Souls 1 bosses are about, and Hell is a great setting for giant terrifying monsters. The Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith could have been the epitome of Dark Souls 1 boss design, but instead of making 1 or 2 good bosses, we got 4 shit ones. First up on the chopping block is one of the worst ones, Cheeseless Discharge. Actually, it's super easy to cheese him, but I can't do that. It betrays my honor as a true gamer. So what's wrong with this boss? All of the hitboxes are wrong. Some attacks are undodgeable, other attacks are only dodgeable in certain ambiguous positions. More hitboxes are wrong. I have no idea what's going on because the animation charge up for all of his attacks look basically the same until the attack comes out. The frame rate is actual ass. Also, did I mention that all of the hitboxes are wrong? How did I die here? Oh right, bad hitboxes. So you find an attack trigger on his left side that causes a big ol' slap. Run like it's a Quelagg explosion because the fucking hitbox is like 2 times larger than the fucking animation. And then you go back, you hit it, stay in the attack trigger area, make him do the same attack, and then hit it again, repeat. Basically, standing in one spot on the leftish side triggers the same attack, and then you get him into a loop. It's a terrible boss, unfinished, but it's not F tier. No, F tier is reserved for real bosses. Cheesy Discharge goes into the new Delete tier. Stray Demon is a cool boss that we'll look at later. Now let's put Stray Demon in a room with a bunch of shit the player can get stuck on to piss him off. This might seem kind of weird, but I sort of like this boss since it adds difficulty to the run behind the enemy strat that causes you to avoid the explosion. I'll give it D tier because this area really didn't need 4 bosses, and although Demon Firesage is probably my favorite boss in this area, it's also a reskin, which is really telling of whoever designed the other 3 bosses. Third boss is right after the second boss with almost no time in between. Let me tell you about the in-depth level 1 strategy for Demon Centipede. Okay, stay in non-fire area, wait. If he doesn't come, wait more. If he come, attack while you can't see anything. Sometimes the player will get dragged around from the boss's colliders straight into the lava. Absolute crap. And just when you think you got him to a ground pound loop, kind of like fucking Cheeseless Discharge, he will jump right back into the lava. Time for another staring contest. Or if I was in charge of this game, I'd say it's time to delete. Alright, I'm going to leave this part of the critique feeling about as incomplete as the game itself. Lost Izalith is bad. Tree branches everywhere in a game with no jump button. The developers thought they were making a 3D platformer until Miyazaki came over and said, "You guys know there's no jump button in this game, right?" Ah shit, it's done. Just copy and paste some non-threatening enemies into the area and we'll just call it a day. That leads us to the last boss, Bed of Cass, Quelagg's Master Witch, Queen of Hell. Who could it be? What a cool moment. Oh, it's a tree and a maggot. Oh. And the boss is, like the area, made for a 3D platformer, but there's no jump button, just a crappy running roll jump. This isn't even worthy of delete tier. We're putting this into Fire the lead developer of Lost Izalith tier. Alright, that rant was cathartic. Time to move on to better things. Actually, not really. We're going back to the Catacombs. Out from one hell and back to another hell of sorts. But instead of an awful level in hell, we're going to have an awful level in the dark. But before we are able to venture the path of darkness, it is time for the match of the century, the level 1 runner Feeble versus the hardest boss of all of Soulsborne, Pinwheel. The moment you've all been waiting for. Get ready to rumble. Oh, fuck you and your constant Berserk references. They keep killing me. Alright, no biggie. Just one more catacomb skip and god damn it! The real Pinwheel boss is getting to Pinwheel. Because of all the fucking wheels. Okay, now it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. The epic fight of the century in 3, 2, 1. Holy crap, I almost died to Pinwheel. Twice. Wow. I swear he is a B or an A tier fight if his damage was 1.5 times more and his health pool is quadrupled. I don't know where to place this guy in the tier list delete since he gets kind of insta-deleted by every player. I don't know, but Pinwheel is kind of a cuck for Daddy Nito, so Pinwheel gets the D. Okay, we are finally done with that super easy fight that was by no means close at all, and I'm dead. No biggie, not a hard game, just one more try and... Alright. Just got back talking to our buddy Solaire, and he willingly gave me this cool hat. Solaire, what a great guy. He also gave me all of his armor and his shield. Now we can all see this level in the beautiful glory it was meant to be seen in. And what we can see is a pretty annoying level. Tomb of the Giants is where the way FromSoft decided to achieve difficulty stops being extremely hard, but I kinda like it, like Stockholm Syndrome, and starts going hard for no reason other than just piss me off. Blighttown might have been ridiculously hard, but it served a narrative purpose with being offset from the slightly easier Undead Burg and Undead Parish levels, and the boss run was reasonable. Nito's boss run is not. This is not fun. This isn't even really challenging. It's just agonizing. Lost Izalith was bad because it was unfinished, but it wasn't actually a hard boss run, just time consuming. Betacast is more of a luck-based boss anyways. Tomb of the Giants is just a hard, long boss run that is in no way fun. There's just hidden enemies everywhere that will jump you if you don't have this cool-looking hat that Solaire gave me. And I don't feel the desperation of being stuck in Blighttown because I can just fast travel anywhere. This difficulty serves nothing to the overall experience other than just make me angry. And the undead skeleton enemies can see you just fine like any other enemy despite being in the dark, so they don't play by the same rules as the player. And there's also 15 pinwheels in a room right before Nito? Why? On the right side, pun intended. Or unintended? I love the way Tomb of the Giants connects to previously visited areas. While I run back to Nito hating my life more every second past, I can at least appreciate the vast array of trees that I once saw from Ash Lake holding up the world. And from another cliff we can see the Demon Ruins in all of its hellish glory. The Demon Ruins works a lot better as a distant view than an actual level, to be honest. Alright, after a terrible and long boss run, we arrive at Gravelord Nito, with our handy Divine Axe to permakill skeletons. Oh yeah, our feeble hero came prepared. And I'm dead. Alright, another terrible boss run, we easily kill the skeletons, and we actually fight Nito for real. Keeping in line with the theme of all Dark Souls 1 bosses explode, the player has to juggle running away from Nito without going too far and triggering more enemy aggro. My only issue with this fight, other than the terrible boss run and taking fall damage at the start, is that almost all of Nito's attacks don't actually hit you. Like, what is this guy swinging at? Like, it shouldn't be that hard for him to hit me. It's an okay boss that is flawed by being too easy to avoid his scythe swings. Nito is a lot better than other late game bosses, but his boss run sucks, so I'll give him C tier, I guess. Alright, next up is Four Kings, and in order to tread the path of the dark, we must hunt down a good boy. And before we do that, let's just get this other forest boss out of the way. Moonlight magic spam. Lots of waiting and lots of magic spam. Looks kind of pretty. Overall, not a stellar boss. I really don't like waiting around, so I'm going to give him the D tier. But Seath is a cool boss. All of his attacks are dodge rollable from any position, unlike a lot of other Dark Souls 1 bosses. Dodgeable attacks combined with having one delayed dodge roll makes Sif kind of feel like a Dark Souls 3 boss with half of its moveset missing. Still fun though, especially because Sif is surrounded by so many other genuine dogshit fights. Unintended. Sif turns his head to the right, quick dodge, or to the left, delayed dodge. It's fun and simple. I'll give it B tier. Now that we got done putting down a good boy, it's time to prove the doggo wrong and actually fell the abyss that Artorias never could. But first we must go through possibly my least favorite level in all of Dark Souls 1, New Londo. This whole area is terrible and not in a good way like Blighttown. The area is actually really short with 0 bonfires, and it illustrates no depth of the world or actual feeling of being lost. It feels more like a memorization based arcade high score game where you just try to get a little further and luckier with each new attempt to maybe survive. And why in the actual hell do these ghost enemies have colliders? I can't run through them, but they can go through literal walls because they're literal ghosts? It's great that the enemies don't play by the same rules that I do. I really love it when late game Dark Souls 1 is just bullshit. The depths in Blighttown served as a dark contrast to the areas around it, that being Undead Burg and Anor Londo, you know, before and after. New Londo isn't the one super brutally hard late game area because they all feel like that. None of the late game areas are any fun to me. I'm having no fun. I don't even want to continue the run. I know the DLC is good, but I really hate this part of the game right now. The way all the last 3 areas achieve difficulty has been artificial and awful. Being level 1 just makes it worse. If a level 1 run made me feel like I was fighting the gargoyles or going through Blighttown for the very first time, it also made me feel like I was going through the Tomb of Giants boss run or New Londo for the first time again, which is just awful. I never wanted to feel that way again, but here I am. I wouldn't hate these late game areas so much if there is one area that I could actually enjoy. If early game Dark Souls 1 was just a bunch of Blightowns in a row, I would have never fallen in love with the game, but the developers made every endgame level its own personal little hell. The whole part of the game is such a low that I don't even want to complete the level 1 run. I want to give up. All I feel right now is just constant stress playing this game. This is worse than the first time I went through these areas, and that feeling was pretty awful as well. But I can't throw in the towel just yet. I didn't do it back then and I won't do it here. I will trial and error my way through the horde of invulnerable ghosts and terrible platforming. Sometimes you just have to suffer through hell to make it to heaven one day. After surviving through a terrible level, I decided that I deserved an easier time with the boss and flicked the difficulty switch into Skyrim mode. Put on Aval's armor, press R1, and face tank heal. I know some people watching are in disbelief this method works at level 1, as was I, but, facts don't lie. An easy boss with the correct strat, just don't ask me to do 4 kings no-hit level 1, because that would be something else. For having a real shit boss run and being too easy with the strat, which could be somewhat my fault, is cheese, but I'll give the 4 kings D tier. It would have been higher, but there's a fucking ghost that blocks the way to the elevator shortcut, and that pisses me off to no end. It's not like I'm going to have an item to kill it every single time I go through the level. Like, come on, why is there a ghost right here, and why does ghost have colliders? Now that those 3 areas are done with, let's move on to some more fun levels. Like in the beginning of the video, remember how I kept praising the game? Well, let's curl up like a ball for what feels like an hour to go back to where it all started, the Undead Asylum. Once I get back to the first boss arena, this game hits me up with a nice surprise, and I'm dead. All things considered, Stray Demon is an okay boss, or at least a cool idea. You position to his side or back to avoid constant explosion spam, and then you hit him. I felt cool when I first figured it out, but this boss has no way to adapt to the winning strat. He never implements a staff swing or anything really, just more explosion and easy to avoid ass slap attacks. I'll give it C tier. It feels good to figure the boss out, but once you do, the demon does nothing to threaten the player at all, and you just kind of win. Back where it all started, in our first jail cell, we find a peculiar doll. Nowadays, this item's a Dark Souls staple, but it was really cool when we first found it in this game. The description vaguely mentions a painted world, and if you pay really good attention, you can decode that this connects to a key painting that we saw in Anor Londo before. This doll is really interesting, and it brings me to my next point. Dark Souls 1 is essentially the idea of uncovering an ancient language or civilization put into art in the medium of a video game. Let me explain. Dark Souls is so abstract with not telling the player jack shit that it feels like you were reading some ancient manuscript. Where do you go? What does this item mean? What does this doll do? In Dark Souls 1, you are an explorer and the world is foreign. The world exists in spite of you, not because of you, just like real life. Crazy how we keep comparing Dark Souls to real life. And just like an archaeologist, a Dark Souls gamer can study the world through item descriptions and draw guesses and conclusions based on the hints given. What painting does this doll talk about? What door does this random key open? How do I reach the bell below the earth? What is at the bottom of the world? Many hints to these questions are given, and only through astute observation will explorers find the correct answers. So now we have this cool doll thingy, and it's time to go into the painted world. This level is really cool, a real return to the amazing level design of Undeadburg and Undead Parish. Tight spaces that demand shield use, fair gank fests of enemies hiding on the ledges, and more creative interconnected level design. Great, fuck, more Berserk references. Not too bad, we'll just go here and go to this ladder, and why? No biggie, one more try, and I'm gonna uninstall! Oh shit, I forgot the lever was right here the whole time. I never needed the ladder, whoopsies. Now that our final confrontation with the Berserk references are over, I hope, we can proceed to the epic cool boss arena, Crossbreed Priscilla. Sorry woman, this is no time to talk. Talking was never an option the second you had a boss health bar. This boss is simple, just look for the footsteps in the snow. An interesting idea, but a bit too easy once you learn it. I don't love the fight, but for creativity I'll give her C tier. And just like that, she is dead. I feel just like a hitman Gestapo for the Mafia after executing their target. I did what I had to do. This is an all-boss tier list, not just some bosses, all bosses, and Priscilla has a boss health bar. It's just business. It's just business, Miyazaki. Why? Why did you give her a boss health bar? Why did you make me do this? It's your fault. Why did you make me kill her? After taking care of business and doing what I had to do, we are now going to kill the best girl, Priscilla's dad, Seath the Scaleless. We can't leave anyone from this family alive. But first, we must murder the students of Hogwarts in the Duke's Archives. This level is really a precursor to the worst Dark Souls 2 Gangfest levels. Mainly the idea of a shit ton of regular enemies in tight spaces, while ranged enemies from a very hard to reach area magic spam you to death. All the while trying to solve a big-brained Harry Potter puzzle just to progress. And to top it off, this area is where the game decides to nerf shield and have the damage be mostly magic and hit through the shield, all the while still forcing players into the tight corridor combat scenarios that almost demand using the block button. On its own, I would like this as a new type of challenge, but with the Hogwarts rejects casting spells, it's just an awful experience. I know it doesn't sound like I like it, because I don't, but this is my favorite of the 4 main late game areas, and I still don't like it, but unlike the other 3 areas, this level isn't irredeemably awful. If you know where you're going, then it isn't too bad, whereas even if I know where I'm going, New Londo still gives me an aneurysm every time. I remember Seath being a pretty hard boss with a terrible boss run, so let's get 20 S's just to be safe. Oh look, the fucking enemy follows me into the arena! Well, I guess I won't first time him. Oh shit, we got him first try. Huh. I remember Seath being much harder. I guess just like Quelagg, these bosses that initially gave me a hard time don't anymore just because I know the strat to win. With Seath, I just baited out the mid-range Ice Breath, hit him, ran super duper far away from his big explosion attack, and then repeated. If giant bosses exploding is the epitome of Dark Souls 1 boss design, then Seath is the test of this design philosophy. Never have your back against the wall and run further than what seems like it's necessary from the explosion, and you should win. Seath is okay, but just like Nito, that boss run is going to lower his ranking. However, I do like the boss run a bit more than Nito because it's pretty and I can actually see things. Well, you can't see the invisible platforms, but those are easy enough to memorize. I'll give Seath the top of C tier above Nito. I have one last optional boss before we depart for better days in the DLC. I held off on this boss because I wanted that Anor Londo bonfire, but let's get this over with. It's time to kill Gwyndolin. So we just had a nice civil conversation with our girlfriend Guinevere, and her simp Gwyndolin, he gets a little upset, so we gotta go kill him, you know? One more kill for the Gestapo hitman. Feeble. And thank God I did it in one try, because this boss run is absolutely the worst in this game. You have to run all the way through the rafters every time. Luckily we didn't get got, so the tentacle henty boy died without too much trouble. The boss itself is okay, an entertaining gimmick. Hide from the shooter with ledges, unless he shoots his big blast, in which case you roll, nothing too special. Be your C tier with the delete tier boss run, so I'll give Gwyndolin the D. Before we try fighting the DLC bosses, let me quickly summarize my thoughts on the endgame areas of Dark Souls 1. They're bad. Initially, I didn't write a conclusion to this section of the video because everyone already knows Dark Souls 1 ran out of time and money so that it couldn't be finished, forever leaving behind its famed legacy as a flawed masterpiece. At this point, it's common knowledge in the community. As you could probably pick up on, being level 1 made these already bad areas way, way worse. I did want to quit at times, but through all the ghost spam and giant dogs in the dark and being dragged into the lava by terrible colliders and terrible boss runs, I just put my head down and suffered through it. When the world-designed intense gameplay of Dark Souls 1 align, I can see the greatest game of all time. The ancient cities you find are stacked on top of one another in a vertically interconnected world that forces you to traverse without fast travel, making it feel all the more real. On the other hand, when Dark Souls 1 is just a giant annoying boss run with invulnerable enemies that are harder than the actual boss, I just don't want to play anymore. There is one silver lining, however. Even though almost all of the endgame content is downright terrible, at least the DLC is another masterpiece. After doing some dumb shit, we can now finally access the DLC before the finale with Gwyn. First up, the Sanctuary Guardian, and wow, right away it feels like I was tossed out of Dark Souls 1 and right into Dark Souls 3. This boss has what feels like a good amount of combos that are very engaging to dodge roll, much more than previous bosses in this game. However, I do have some issues with how the player has to fight this boss. Although he's fun and fast paced, you can kinda just bait out a giant wind attack that doesn't even deal damage and is super easy to dodge, and you can also bait out his charge attack, and if you just bait out these attacks and punish correctly, you'll easily punish his tiny health bar for all of his health. You can also punish his normal melee attacks, but it's really difficult, not worth it, since he'll probably just dodge away most of the time if you try to play aggressive anyways. A really great boss, but mechanically I prefer the dance of Dark Souls combat when baiting out 2 attacks doesn't guarantee a win. Also, if I could run while locked on, I could probably punish the boss more easily when he lands after flying, making this Dark Souls 3 feeling fight make me want a more capable character to match. Still, when stacked up against the other very simple Dark Souls 1 bosses, I can't not give this beast A tier. If Sanctuary Guardian reveals a whole new type of boss feel, then this next boss is the amazing realization of this design philosophy. Souls players commonly compare the boss battles in these games to a dance of sorts. The give and take of dodge roll timings and finding creative openings is a dance in its own way, but it never really fully felt like a dance in Dark Souls 1, not until now. Artorias of the Abyss is the first real dance in the Souls series. So much mechanical depth. He punishes back rolls with the delayed overhead swing, so you should side roll to dodge while being close. But he punishes side rolls with the double Zelda spin slash attack. You need to watch him very closely to know the correct dodge roll direction. Unlike Sanctuary Guardian, you can actually punish Artorias' dashes with a heavy swing before Artorias can get away. All of Artorias' attacks can be dodged with 4-way rolling, making me not want 8-way rolling like I complained about with Smough Ornstein since the fight is fair as is. Artorias is truly unique as he is the only true Dark Souls 3 dance type fight we've seen so far, while still feeling like Dark Souls 1 where every action and roll matters. Artorias is impeccable. S tier. The only issue I had at first is that you can only heal when Artorias' AI is confused. In other words, if Artorias does not want you to heal, you cannot heal. While I would normally say this is mechanically a flaw in the design, after some time I realized that you are not supposed to heal during the Artorias fight unless he is powering up. Since he powers up so often, I actually like the fact that you can't heal because it's like a series of 1v1 Mortal Kombat matches, where after one player is defeated, both players respawn at full health. To put it another way, whenever Artorias has his health lowered a little bit, he powers up and so do you. Once we have fallen the greatest of warriors, it's time to go through a very hard level. After dying many times, we get to the Abyss and it's brighter than the Tomb of the Giants. Weird. I guess I'll take it as FromSoft realizing that the Tomb of the Giants boss run in the dark was not in any way fun, so they changed the level design for the Abyss, which lore-wise should be darker than Nito's domain, but I'll let it pass since the Abyss letting you see a bit better is better for game feel. Now we have 2 final bosses left to us in the DLC. First up will be Black Dragon Kalameet. I feel incredibly mixed on this boss. On one hand, this is a damn cool fight, probably the first dragon fight with in-depth mechanics in the series. Of course, I didn't play Demon Souls, so I'm just guessing here. Mechanically, the fight is good. Dodge roll through the attacks, run away from fire, and whack at his ginormous health bar. Sort of a precursor to Midir, as they both are simple but hard dragon fights with high damage and a huge amount of HP. But I do dislike a lot about this boss, if I'm being honest. The way Kalameet keeps turning is almost begging for the player to get stuck in between his legs, and then he will pull his legs in, trapping the player between the colliders to have his entire body become an undodgeable hitbox from that position. I know this is my fault since I got underneath Kalameet, even though that is always a bad idea, but it just feels so awkward to die because I'm stuck between colliders while his feet become hitboxes. It just feels janky. And there's more jank to this fight than just that. Kalameet will do variable damage on his head swipe and charge because I think you get stuck on the collider as you get hit and it drags the player model into taking double damage. I think that's what's happening here. All I know is the way the collision code works in Dark Souls 1 means Kalameet just feels awkward to fight. When Kalameet works, he's cool, but his health bar is so big that you're bound to feel the jank eventually. I'll give him the bottom of A tier. I want to put him in B tier for jank, but I just can't put the dragon in the same tier as Iron Golem and Sif because mechanically Kalameet is so much better when the fight works as intended, which is the majority of the time. Now that Kalameet has met his demise, there is but one impossible challenge that remains. Manus, Father of the Abyss. Let's see how our feeble hero does. How much time has passed? Days, weeks, years. I've lost count to the endless abyss. It is all that I see. My old bones tire and demand for a final rest. Who is Feeble King? Why did he start his journey? Who really knows why I fight? Do I even know? I have lost a great deal of my life to Manus, Father of the Abyss. Many people have mentioned that Manus is really just a hard Dark Souls 3 boss that wound up in Dark Souls 1, making him one of the hardest bosses in the series, as the player in Dark Souls 1 is not as agile as a Dark Souls 3 character. I used to agree with this statement, but after fighting Manus at level 1, my mind has changed. Manus isn't a Dark Souls 3 boss, but the ultimate fusion of Dark Souls 1 and 3 boss design in one spectacularly difficult fight. Dark Souls 1 bosses are all about giant monsters that have an explosion AoE attack and questionable hitboxes. Then Manus is the penultimate Dark Souls 1 boss. Manus' roar is essentially an explosion attack like many others that we've seen because you can't dodge it, or at least not all of it if you have bad positioning, so you must get away. And in order to get away, you must be positioned in front of him without being too close to him. But in order to punish many of Manus' other combos, you will roll to his side, so be by Manus' front side, but not too much to his side or else you won't be able to dodge the roar combo. Unlike every other explosion boss where the difficulty ends there, Manus adds these spells to increase the difficulty with tons of new positioning requirements. Are you playing far away or mid-range to bait out the roar combo? Now Manus can punish far away play with the giant AoE one-shot spell that only stops right next to him, and Manus has an undodgeable, unrunnable mid-range burst spell one-shot, so you must play close to Manus, but then it's harder to dodge the roar, and to top it off, Manus will punish close play with an aerial strike spell where you need to run away. Damn, so where do you position? Close, but not too close. Mid-range, but not too deep. When you're mid-range, he can use an undodgeable one-shot, so preemptively run towards him and get ready for the side roll if he does the burst one-shot. But now you're too close, so preemptively back up from the roar and aerial strike spell. This boss is really hard. There isn't a single boss in Dark Souls 3 positioning this hard, not even at level 1. Wow. I hated Manus at level 1 at first because he has bad hitboxes if you try to play aggressive and dodge like a pro, because dodge rolling doesn't always work on Manus. If Artorias was like a Dark Souls 3 boss where you can dodge roll almost anything from any position, Manus is the epitome of a Dark Souls 1 boss and a Dark Souls 3 boss combined. Dark Souls 1 bosses are about positioning, and Dark Souls 3 bosses are about dodge roll patterns. But in order to fight Manus, correct positioning is necessary for dodge rolling to even be possible. The level of strategy to beat Manus is intense. It's insane. To point out some negatives, I think the boss run was unnecessarily long for how hard the boss was to beat, and they didn't need to throw a shit ton of rubble in the arena to increase the difficulty of an already positioning heavy boss. But I really do love Manus quite a lot. Artorias is truly amazing, the greatest of all Berserk references, but I always value winning a fight with strategy over just a dance of dodge roll patterns. Manus earns his rightful place at the top of S tier as my personal favorite fight in Dark Souls 1. The level of strategy is unlike any other Dark Souls game I have ever played. Wow, it's been a journey. I killed 2 Pokemon at one time, then I went from Hell of Lost Izalith to go straight back to the hellish levels of the Tomb of the Giants in New Londo, only for this video to almost be lost to Manus, Father of the Abyss. But through all the trials and tribulations we overcame. Our feeble hero fell all the fearsome beasts despite his weak level 1 stature, and now it's time to take what's ours. One thing that I've neglected to analyze until now is the story of Dark Souls, since the journey of the level 1 run took precedence, but now I think it's time to talk about why we are killing these gods. We are told by Frampt to succeed Gwyn, and by Cath to let the fire fade and rule, which creates an interesting narrative of 2 serpents pulling the strings with motivation tinged in lies. Neither option is good. No matter what we do, all will fade eventually. But we do have one choice. Do we hollow out now so that everyone else and life can flourish? Or do we hold on to our power for as long as possible while the world suffers, only to eventually meet the same cold, dead fate as our power will fade in the darkness? What a great narrative, poetically told by 2 serpent-tongued serpents that lie through their misshapen teeth. Before we can finally end this crazy journey, we have but one more story element left to experience. The end. Our end. No matter what we do on this journey, in the end it doesn't even matter. Even though we slayed giant monsters and have become a god through our own strength, eventually we will become just like Gwyn. sad and alone, suffering in the darkness. This is our end. We will even be parryable as the final boss if we faded long enough. But was the journey useless? Of course not. I wouldn't trade it for anything. The feeling of real fear and triumph is better here in Dark Souls than any other game ever. This feeling is only enhanced when you're level 1. The fear of the world is stronger than ever before, and so too is the triumph. We've had our challenges and we overcame them, and that alone is worth it. So now, let's look into the eyes of the old man we shall become. The old man that we will become when we fade away. The final boss, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. The point of a level 1 run isn't that you are flexing how good you are at the game. You want to feel like you're bad at the game, again. Every single Dark Souls player, no matter what, will hit a wall of challenge. A level 1 runner, of course, we hit walls all the time. Melee no summons, we hit tons of walls as well. Melee with summons, yeah, they hit walls too. Magic with summons, yeah, even players who play the game on the easiest difficulty will hit a wall of challenge eventually when a boss counters their strategies. All of these ways of making the game easier, at the end of the day, are training wheels to ease the difficulty of riding the bike. However, once you take those training wheels off, you will see this game in a different light. You will start to appreciate the mechanical depth and strategy Dark Souls bosses provide, and more importantly, you will recapture the magic of those emotions felt only during your first Souls game. When I tell people that I do level 1 runs, they think that it's intimidating and impossible for them, and my counterpoint is this. We all hit walls, everyone, and only once you break through the wall and learn a new way to play the game do you overcome the impossible. Of course, it might not be worth it for you. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. Sometimes I want to give up, but I don't, because that would be betraying the part of me that first fell in love with the Souls series, the part of me that craves triumph over impossible odds. So try it. Wherever you are in Dark Souls, try it. Start taking the training wheels off one at a time. Push past your limits. You will start to love and hate some bosses in ways that you couldn't imagine. But more importantly, you will feel it again. That feeling of terror and joy, fear and bravery, defeat and overcoming. It will feel like the very first time.